Welcome to our channel, where we dive into the darkest corners of reality, exploring the unexplained, the unsettling, and the terrifying. Tonight, we venture into the vast, desolate highways, traveling alongside those who navigate them night after night. Truckers. These are their stories, tales whispered among themselves in hushed tones at lonely truck stops, stories that will chill you to the bone. Today, we bring you 3 of the most disturbing true trucker horror stories. Stories of encounters that defy explanation. Stories that will leave you wondering what lurks in the shadows of our world. Our story takes us to the desolate stretches of Highway 16 in Saskatchewan, Canada. The night is thick with a chilling fog, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. Our storyteller, a seasoned trucker named Frank, is alone. His only companions, the hum of his engine and the eerie silence of the deserted highway. Frank's been driving for hours, the monotony broken only by the occasional crackle of his CB radio. Suddenly, through the swirling fog, a figure appears on the shoulder, illuminated by the truck's headlights. A young woman, her face pale, her thumb extended in a desperate plea for a ride. Frank, despite the late hour and eerie setting, slows his rig, his instincts whispering caution, but his heart urging him to help. He pulls over, the air brakes hissing, a counterpoint to the silence that has fallen over the highway. The woman approaches, her footsteps muffled by the fog, her features obscured by shadows. She thanks him, her voice a hushed whisper, and climbs into the passenger seat, bringing with her a chill that seems to seep from her very being. Frank tries to make small talk, but the woman's responses are short, her voice barely a murmur. She identifies herself as Sarah, explaining she's trying to get home, her voice trailing off as she avoids Frank's gaze. As they drive, the fog seems to thicken, pressing in on the truck, isolating them in a world of swirling gray. Then Sarah asks Frank to turn down a side road, a shortcut she claims will save them time. Frank hesitates, but Sarah insists, her voice taking on a strange urgency. Reluctantly, Frank agrees, guiding the truck onto the narrow, winding road, the fog closing in behind them. The road seems to stretch on forever, each turn leading only to another stretch of desolate, fog-shrouded asphalt. Frank's unease morphs into full-blown fear, a prickling sensation at the back of his neck telling him something is terribly wrong. He glances at Sarah, intending to ask her to direct him back to the highway, but the words die in his throat. Sarah is gone, vanished. The passenger seat is empty, the chill that accompanied her presence now a biting cold that grips Frank's heart. He slams on the brakes, the truck skidding to a halt on the deserted road, his mind reeling, his heart pounding. He jumps out of the truck, his eyes frantically searching the fog-choked darkness, his voice hoarse as he calls out for Sarah, his pleas swallowed by the thick silence. But there's no answer, only the mournful sigh of the wind through the trees, a sound that seems to mock his fear. Frank, his blood running cold, scrambles back into the truck, his hands shaking as he throws it into gear, his foot heavy on the accelerator. He races back the way they came, the truck careening around the blind curves, his mind replaying the events of the past hour, each replay amplifying the terror that claws at his sanity. He burst back onto the highway, the familiar sight a beacon of hope in the oppressive fog. He doesn't stop driving until the first rays of dawn begin to pierce the dissipating fog. The sight of another truck stop a welcome sight for his terrified mind. Shaking, he stumbles into the diner, the warmth a stark contrast to the icy grip of fear that still held him captive. As he's about to leave, a newspaper clipping taped to the wall catches his eye. The headline screams back at him, "Local woman killed in hit and run on Highway 16. The date on the newspaper matches the night Sarah disappeared from his truck. His blood turns to ice. He stares at the picture, his breath catching in his throat. It's her. Sarah, the woman from his truck. The woman who vanished into thin air, but her eyes in the picture hold a knowing sadness, a haunting familiarity that sends a fresh wave of terror crashing over him. Our next story takes us to the lonely highways of the American Southwest, where the heat shimmers off the asphalt and the vast emptiness can play tricks on the mind. Our protagonist, a young trucker named Maria, is new to the open road, her youthful enthusiasm tempered by a healthy dose of caution. She's heard the stories, the whispers of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena that plague those who dare to travel alone at night. Tonight, however, she dismisses them as just that, stories. She's tired, her eyes heavy from hours of driving, and the lights of a rest stop beckon like a beacon in the darkness. Pulling into the mostly deserted rest stop, Maria parks her rig under the flickering fluorescent lights, seeking a few hours of much-needed sleep. She checks her doors twice, a habit instilled by her father, a veteran trucker himself, who'd warned her of the dangers lurking in the shadows. As she settles into her bunk, the silence of the rest stop is broken by the low rumble of another truck pulling in, its headlights momentarily cutting through the darkness. Maria, reassured by the presence of another soul in the vast emptiness, closes her eyes, her thoughts drifting to the comfort of home. But sleep, when it finally comes, is fitful, plagued by unsettling dreams and a growing sense of unease. She wakes with a start, her heart pounding in her chest, a cold sweat clinging to her skin. She can't shake the feeling that she's being watched, that unseen eyes are peering at her through the darkness. She sits up, her eyes scanning the darkened cab of her truck, her hand instinctively reaching for the tire iron she keeps under her seat. The air is thick with a silence so profound it feels almost oppressive, broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. She tells herself it's just her imagination, the product of too much coffee and the solitude of the open road. But the feeling persists, a gnawing anxiety that refuses to be ignored. She tries to go back to sleep, to will herself to relax, but the feeling of being watched intensifies, sending shivers down her spine. She can't shake the feeling that someone or something is out there, lurking in the shadows, its gaze fixed on her with an intensity that makes her skin crawl. Finally, unable to bear the suffocating tension any longer, Maria throws back the covers and climbs out of her bunk. She grabs her flashlight and the tire iron, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. She checks the locks on her truck, her hand trembling slightly as she confirms they're secure. Taking a deep breath, she steps out into the cool night air, the silence even more profound outside the confines of her truck. The rest stop is deserted, the other truck long gone, leaving Maria alone with the whispering wind and her growing fear. Our final story takes us to the winding mountain roads of Colorado, where the air is thin and the darkness seems to hold its breath. Our storyteller, a seasoned trucker named Jack, is known for his gruff exterior and his no-nonsense approach to life on the road. He's seen it all, or so he thought, until the night he picked up a load of antique furniture destined for a remote estate on the outskirts of a forgotten mining town. From the moment the furniture was loaded onto his trailer, Jack felt uneasy, a sense of wrongness that he couldn't shake. The air inside the trailer grew heavy, the silence broken by unexplained creaks and groans that seemed to emanate from the furniture itself. He dismissed it as his imagination, the product of a long day and the eerie silence of the mountains. But as he continued his journey, the strange occurrences intensified, becoming impossible to ignore. The temperature inside the cab fluctuated wildly, the air growing icy cold one minute, then stiflingly hot the next. The radio, usually a steady stream of country music and trucker chatter, crackled with static, punctuated by bursts of what sounded like whispered voices, their words unintelligible, but their tone undeniably menacing. Jack, a man of logic and reason, tried to rationalize the strange events, but deep down, a primal fear began to stir within him. He'd heard the stories, whispered tales of haunted objects and restless spirits, but he'd always dismissed them as superstition, the ramblings of tired minds. Now, alone on the desolate mountain road, surrounded by the antique furniture that seemed to throb with an unseen energy, he wasn't so sure. As night fell, casting long, eerie shadows across the winding road, the activity in the trailer intensified. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, seeming to press in on Jack, mocking his fear. Objects began to move on their own, a lamp swaying violently despite the lack of wind, a drawer in a nearby dresser sliding open and slamming shut with a resounding boom. Jack, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel, tried to focus on the road, to block out the terrifying events unfolding behind him. But the fear was a living thing now, coiling around his heart, squeezing the breath from his lungs. He considered pulling over, abandoning the cursed cargo on the side of the road and fleeing back to the safety of civilization. But something held him back, a strange compulsion to see the delivery through, to deliver the furniture to its final destination. Perhaps it was pride, a refusal to be bested by what he still hoped was just his overactive imagination. Or perhaps some deeper unseen force was at work, guiding him, manipulating him towards an unknown fate. As he approached the turnoff for the mining town, a thick fog rolled in, blanketing the road in an eerie silence. The open road, a symbol of freedom and adventure, can also be a breeding ground for fear, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. The truckers who shared their stories tonight have experienced this firsthand, their encounters with the unknown forever etched into their memories. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling tales. But be warned, the next time you find yourself traveling alone at night, remember the stories of Frank, Maria, and Jack. Stay safe out there, and remember, the road can be a very scary place, especially when you're alone in the dark with your fears.